Hello to everyone on the phone. Thanks for joining us for our webinar, Talk to the Expert, Power Your Integrated Campaign with the Best of Every Channel. I'm pleased so many of you could join us today to talk about my favorite challenge and my perpetual goal as a marketer, the ways to maximize all your channels to get the most out of your efforts to achieve your marketing goals. Today we'll hear from a range of industry experts who are focused on that every day, and they'll share tips and best practices to help you better integrate across the available channels. We won't cover everything today, but we hope to give you some new ideas to consider as you build your spring marketing program. We've got a lot of great content to cover, so we'll get going quickly. Just want to remind everyone that our webinars are recorded, and the content from many of our past webinars are available on our website, schooldata.com, so you can catch up on topics you may have missed. And we will make the slides and recording available to you tomorrow, and we'll send you an email as soon as they're ready. We're also going to allow time for questions and answers at the end of the session, but you can submit a question at any time using that Q&A panel in the lower right. And we're going to try something new today. As you listen and you hear some of the ideas, we hope you'll share any successes that you're having with integrating your channels through that Q&A window as well, and we'll share those with the larger group. So let me quickly introduce our panel, each of whom will share with you a few tips, but everyone on this panel is committed to answering questions both in the session as well as following up after the webinar. We'll hear from Linda Winter, President of the Winter Group, Jim McVetti, Managing Partner at First Step Advisors, Ryan Mansell, Principal at Flywheel 360, Derek Fairfield, Leader of E-Marketing at MDR, Aaron McPherson, Senior Editor at MDR's We Are Teachers, and Kim Booth, Manager of Web Advertising at MDR. So welcome, panel. So as we continue to evolve our marketing strategies in a changing digital environment, the constant that's always been working to integrate our branding, messaging, timing, and offers across all our channels. It's a deliberate, coordinated effort, and I'll be the first to admit it's hard and takes a lot of planning. But it just makes good sense to extend the investment you make in a campaign across your channels shown here and beyond these channels, as well as across your organization, so everyone and every message reinforces your goals. The old rule of 7, that it takes approximately 7 impressions before a prospect will take action, can take many forms in your organization, and you'll hear some good ways to leverage and integrate channels from our team today. While we waited to get started, we asked you a quick few poll questions to get a sense of how the audience was feeling about their integrated marketing, so let's see what you had to say. So my company is focused on, I can't see the whole question here. Can you switch back to the main screen? Didn't print that screen. My company is focused on integrating our marketing campaigns across the channels. 60% of us are, so that's good. Somewhat is 41%, and nobody was saying they're not trying to integrate. So I think we're all focused on the right things. What is our biggest challenge to implementing an integrated strategy? Budget seems to be our top challenge at 28%. Bandwidth, close second. Well, actually, it's in third, because knowledge and expertise on how to do it. So that's maybe why you're here today. We're glad to see if we can share some good ideas. Other, I don't know if we have an other detailed category, but that gets 13%. So, it's interesting. It is a broad range of challenges we all face in making this happen. And what are our marketing priorities in 2013? High priorities for brand building, visibility, lead gen, sales promotion, building a contact database, sales support. A lot of these things are high priorities. It's interesting stuff. That's good. That's a great background to shape today's discussion and set some good context for us. And we'll keep that in mind as we run through the presentation. Ultimately, with a constantly evolving set of marketing tools, how and what channels we integrate is a new story every year. But, the results and research emphasize the importance of integrating, as these quotes from Gartner and Forrester reinforce here. With new marketing automation capabilities and digital channels, running your integrated campaigns is becoming more about the strategy and the planning and less about the heavy lifting of executing it. Our team of experts here today have some good thoughts for how to build that strategy for integration, so let's get started with hearing from them. And we're going to kick it off with Linda Winter. So take it away, Linda.
Well, thanks, Moira, and good morning and good afternoon to everybody. We're so glad so many of you are on the line with us. I think it's so interesting that lead generation and sales promotion and then brand building certainly top the poll. But because I think we're talking first about direct mail, which still for many of you is the anchor of your marketing programs, both in terms of messaging and outreach, and for some of you, mail is taking a supporting role. But it's particularly important, I think, in our key selling periods in the education markets, and we're just coming up to that for spring, and we'll certainly talk about that. But I think there are some new uses of direct mail. Certainly, dimensional mailers have seen a resurgence because they work, and we'll talk about that. Bold messaging seems to work in mail. Selectivity, and I think that the critical piece here is that when we're integrating across channels, our digital advertising, our social, which are all critical, but how we talk to our prospects and our customers in those channels is a little different than how we have the freedom to talk to them in mail. And in mail, whether that's a catalog or a promotional piece or another kind of dimensional mailer, this is our chance really to sell and to really make some strong sales statements, and that certainly seems to match with some of the goals you all are saying are your priorities. So let's look quickly here in our time we have together and let's talk about dimensional mailers, and we can certainly give you some ideas as we talk further. But thud packages, heft packages seem to really have some staying power and some impact power, and most importantly, response power. And I think that's because it says to your customers and your prospects, you're important to us, you're worth this kind of effort. And because those pieces tend to have multiple components, people get their hands on those pieces longer, and with each second that ticks by, you certainly have additional chances to sell, to position products, and to make some impact that leads to response. Certainly in packages like this, they don't go to everybody, and that's where we'll talk about be selective. But it is helpful to think about these, and you see two boxes here, but there are other kinds of dimensional mailers. I think that's okay. Stephanie, you can go ahead and we can talk about dimensional mailers and bold messages. I think we want to right-size that message. Short speak certainly is the way of messaging and positioning. I do think in direct mail we have the chance not to bury the grabber, so we can make a statement, we can make it show. I think that like all other forms of marketing communications, what counts, and again, Moira said, it's the rule of 7 here. It's not always enough just to send one postcard and sit and wait for the phone to ring or the clicks on the landing page. I think repetition across the channels certainly works. But I do think bold mailers certainly seem to break through in this influx of media and messaging that educators are getting. I do want to talk just for a minute or two here about being selective with what we're doing, and we have, thanks to folks like MDR, a way to really look at ranking and creating hierarchies of prospects and customers. I would say to you that better prospects may get a better piece. So they may get additional information, or they may get an email or a card that says the catalog's coming. It's got special offers just for you. And again, that supports sales promotions. Some prospects may get a personalized letter from a rep or a consultant saying your catalog's coming, call me. but there are things to do to be selective. What I would say with all marketing communications, but particularly with mailing, is really to begin, like all curriculum folks do, with the end in mind. What do we want to happen? If we're going to use direct mail for a specific component of sales promotion, that tells us how to create the list and the mailing piece with that. For catalogs, the end in mind is different. But I would say to you that those are the quick tips for thinking about direct mail, its role in your integrated campaign, and how you can make it perform more cost effectively and with more success. And speaking of data and getting ready for spring catalogs, I'm gonna toss it now to Ryan, who's going to talk to us about database marketing. Ryan, it's all yours.
Oh, thank you, Linda. What a great segue into the database discussion. The segmentation Linda just talked about is critical to the success for mailings, which means the database needs to be updated with actionable data points. That's paramount to the success. The database is the lifeblood of your marketing decision-making, and I'm no different from anybody else on the phone today. I'm faced with the daily challenge of finding the right person to deliver the right message at the right time. The great thing is that if I properly integrate my marketing tools with my CRM, that challenge becomes less of a burden and the science enters into the picture. Let's discuss two integration points from marketing perspectives, both inbound and outbound. Simply defined, the inbound is the way you get prospects to find you. I've identified just a few of the channels in which your prospects are engaging with today. What's great about inbound is that they're already offering you the feedback you're looking for, regardless of channel. With webinars like today, they respond to polling questions during the event and surveys posted. For blogs, they post comments and share socially. Google AdWords are telling you what they're looking for, and with web analytics, they tell you the content they're most interested in. These are just a few of the examples of what's out there, the data that they're already feeding to you, as already been mentioned. There's some great tools like HubSpot or Perdot that not only assist with migrating your content to the key inbound areas, but they measure the prospect interaction, providing actual metrics for your next steps. Point here is the information is being provided, and it's our charge to collect it and have a plan for the next steps. Integrating your marketing tools with CRM will automate the communication to your sales team for both qualified and suspect leads. Your inbound is going to drive your outbound marketing. So with that, we'll move on to outbound, which simply defined is ways in which you seek out prospects. Again, I've identified just a fraction of what other outbound channels there are today. Now that we've mastered the inbound, we can tackle the science of outbound. Our CRM, or in some cases our email service provider like a Silverpop or an Eloqua, contain all the digital body language in our inbound efforts at Marshall. If we successfully integrate this data with the data from partners like NDR, now we have a powerful database that not only tells us who our top customers are, but who else looks like our top customers, thus providing us our top prospects to target. Now we have the right segmentation and process, identifying the right person, delivering the right message at the right time. Create the right integration data process, and success will follow. With that, up next we've got Mr. Tim McVetti discussing Tradeshow Strategies, and that's a great channel to collect data. Tim?
Thanks, Ryan. As you heard, data is essential. It's an essential element of any integrated marketing strategy, and that's true for trade shows as it is for anything else. I noted in the poll at the outset of this session that trade shows for 2013, for most people, were a low priority. And I think that's quite often a reflection of the lower than expected return that companies realize from trade shows. So coming out of the busy, or actually I should say entering into the busiest time of our market's trade show season, I hope some of these tips are both timely and helpful. And I'd like to start with metrics and how important they are, building on some of the themes that Ryan just shared. Having good metrics really is a way for you to understand how to get higher returns. Now, if you're responsible for budgeting, you know how quickly these costs can add up. I mean, just exhibits and shipping and staffing are expensive, and then there's the sneaky costs like electricity and internet. They really add up. So that's why it's so important to track your outcomes. This grid is just a simple example of how a company might manually track both what goes into a trade show season and what they get out of it. I think however you track, it's important to set your goals and build a formula to that end. Certainly Salesforce.com or other CRMs have great reporting tools. You can rely on groups like Flywheel 360 to help you strategize about the data you want to put in so you can take the guesswork out of it. I think it's really important to note that the CEOs I work with, when they start to ask why are they spending so much on trade shows, they get uncomfortable when a response is it's a good branding exercise. Typically, we're seeing lead gen as a really important piece, and that actually was reinforced in the poll, which was a very high priority among our respondents today. So metrics become really important. That means having a metrics tracker and updating it after every event, big and small, defining what your activities are pre and post show and making sure you record them, and then certainly establish a hot lead protocol. This is that protocol where if someone visits your booth and they represent someone with budget, with need, with authority, you should treat them as special, tell them they're special, and then track your progress all the way to whether they become sales ready or they become closed, either won or lost status. At least you'll have that data to understand, is your performance going to equate to higher outcomes. So speaking of performance, let's talk about what people do on site at the trade shows. And oftentimes I work with companies both as a member of the EdNet Insight Analyst team to conduct marketing reviews, and then in my own practice I'll often visit with companies on site, assess their protocols, their practices, and even their team behaviors to try and improve performance. And these are three things that come up quite often. The first is, you've built a lovely booth, now get out. Picture in this simple graphic, the blue is your actual exhibit, the green are those corridors that people walk in between the different booth exhibits. Your team needs to be standing in the yellow. If they're hiding inside their booth, they're not going to be able to find people because they're certainly not going to come in looking for you. I think that's really important, and you should not assume that your team knows it. Even your best, most personable salespeople will actually start to falter if they're not coached properly. The second thing I'd like to point out is you have to keep your heads up. Certainly important emails come in, text messages, and what have you. There's no question those are important, but sitting at a booth or standing at a booth is not the time to do that. So be a stickler about this for your teams and let them know that if your head's down, then perhaps a prospect is walking by, and I encourage you to really think about that. And now, the final thing I like to point out to companies when they're on site is, as you're standing in your booth, right in that yellow section, your head's up looking around, you certainly want to talk to anyone, but you don't have to encourage everyone to stick around. Oftentimes we try and avoid roaming packs of trick-or-treaters that come out in groups of 8 or 10 and they're looking for gadgets. That's fine. More power to them. But as a provider, as a vendor who spent a lot of money, I'm focused on that groups of 1 to 2 people who are clearly expressing an interest. Make sure you have good qualifying questions so that when you do engage people, you're talking to the right people. Let's go to the next slide and talk about then how do we warm up our community so that when they are on site, you're getting the most out of your experience. And I think the biggest thing you can do this year is to connect it to social media. It's perhaps the best thing you can do to improve your outcomes for trade shows, which are already expensive. You've got growing communities. It's typically a high priority among companies, and you should invest wisely. This is an opportunity to extend the show even before people arrive at the event and keep the dialogue going once it's over. Don't forget, your communities are looking for ways to get engaged. I've had clients sponsor really fun on-site photo contests that they then post to social media, whether it's just for fun dialogue or even for prizes. We've done live tweeting at events, and we've relied on third parties, people, whether they're domain experts or even power customers to become guest contributors. It's a great way to get a dialogue going. There's one other phenomenon that's creeping up that I want to point out, which is that people are tweeting out to their own networks to find out where they should be spending time. I've actually seen this in actual on-site, in-school sales presentations. When facing a decision maker, they'll actually tweet to their network, has anyone heard of this company? And they're looking for responses. So if they're doing that within actual sales presentations, you can be sure that they're going to be tweeting out and finding out from their own peers who they should be spending time with. That means having a vibrant social community with a lot of visibility is going to be really important to having a good presence both before, during, and after your show. So to speak about social media and how you can make the most of that exercise, we'll turn it over to Erin McPherson.
Hi, everyone. I'm a writer and editor at MDR's We Are Teachers. And as a writer, I'm always thinking about how words and content can make an impact on marketing for my company. And content marketing is just the center point of my job as a writer and editor. But it's the strategy of putting content resources like blog articles, videos, quotes, images, infographics, anything you can think of in front of your client base. Not so you can sell things necessarily, but so that your client base comes to think of you as an expert or brand leader in a given area. The focus is more on building a relationship with a client instead of on selling something, so that when in the future your client does need to make a purchase, you're the person they call. And with that in mind, I've put together 3 tips that will help you to use words to make an impact on your marketing efforts for your company. My first tip is to work on striking a balance between the types of marketing content on your social channels. It's really easy as a writer to put up the same types of posts, maybe the blog article you just wrote or an article that you saw on a certain source. And one of the best ways to really build brand leverage with content marketing is to spark interest by giving your audience the content they want. And a really interesting thing is that the content doesn't even have to be yours. As a rule of thumb, for every 1 piece of original content that you post, share 3 or 4 pieces of content from other sources. And that doesn't necessarily mean like an article, but it could be a graphic, it could be a video, it could be a quote from a famous person. It could be a link, it could be a little snippet from an article. There's all sorts of ways that you can share it. Now, this can take a lot of time too. It takes less time than writing your own content. But one of the best strategies to getting content to post on your social channels is signing up for newsletters or feeds from bloggers. I have probably 30 in my inbox that I get every day, a newsletter or an article from a blogger, but I use those articles as content on our social media channels, which in return builds our brand. The benefit of having balanced content on your channels is that you have a variety of sources and that you don't have to write it, and it engages your audience and demonstrates your thought leadership. My second tip is to use your brand's area of leadership to create integrated content campaigns. This is really tricky because I think a lot of times it's easy to throw out an article that you see onto Facebook or pin a pin, but it's a lot harder to really build an integrated campaign across various channels. A few months ago, we were working with a graduate university who wanted to reach teachers who felt like they were too busy to go to school and to work at the same time. So what we did for them is we collected tips from teachers on how teachers found work and life balance while attending graduate school. And with those tips, instead of just putting them on Facebook or Pinterest, which we did, we created this huge infographic poster and a blog article, and then we sent those out to teachers via direct mail and email. So this integrated campaign where these tips were shown on Facebook and on Twitter and on Pinterest and through email and through direct mail was a way that we really spread branding for our clients. So some suggestions I have for doing this is to create a series of blog articles and email them out once a week or once a month to your client base and just say, this is some information you might want. Another thing that really works for us is to do research or a survey around an area of brand leadership and to create an infographic poster or white paper with the results, and then send that white paper via direct mail or that infographic poster via email to your client base. And then a third suggestion I have is to do a roundup email once a week or once a month that says, this is our favorite pin of the week. This is our favorite Facebook post of the week. This is the best blog article we've seen all month. And all these things help you to use multiple channels to create highly relevant content that amplifies your brand's reach. And then my final tip is to engage your audience in new and creative ways. It's hard to get your audience engaged with you, but if they are, when it comes time to purchase, they'll feel like they know you and they trust you. And when you're their trusted friend in your area of expertise, then they're going to buy for you. So we work really hard to engage our audience. We ask lots of questions that spark conversation on our Facebook page. I read a stat the other day that said if you get 27 comments on a Facebook post, it will be seen by as many eyes as if you paid to promote it. And that really hit me because paying to promote a post every week may not be feasible, but getting 25 comments is. So I always work to write questions and posts that maybe engage my users in new ways. The benefit of doing this is the more engaged your audience is, the more likely they're going to be to think of your brand when it's time to buy. And with all that, I'm going to pass the phone to Derek Fairfield, who's going to be talking about ways to use this content in email marketing.
Great, thanks a lot, Erin. So I'd like to take a few minutes and talk about how email marketing fits into the overall integrated campaign mix. I'm going to discuss first goals, focus on the goals of the integrated campaign, then spend a few minutes discussing the design of the email and why and how that's important, and then lastly mention why landing page optimization, even though technically not email, should definitely not be overlooked. So with that, let's jump in. So first I want to discuss why it's important to take a step back and really focus on the goals of the integrated campaign, and then specifically discuss how email factors into the overall goal. As Linda Winter mentioned earlier, a great way to look at this is to start with the end in mind. We publish a digital marketing trends report each year, and some of you may be familiar with this report. In last year's report, we asked marketers about what channels they're using in integrated campaigns. In the top 3 channels, pretty steady each year, first email, then direct mail, and then trade shows coming in with number 3. We're also seeing social marketing and web advertising increasingly rise up in the survey each year. So with this in mind, a few key questions. What is the goal of the integrated campaign? Is direct mail supporting email? Is email supporting direct mail? Linda Winter touched on kind of using these 2 channels to support each other. In my experience with helping some of our customers, it gets pretty easy to get caught up in the minutia in each channel, what the metrics are going to be, whether it's how many likes or the open rate of an email in the overall campaign. And what I'm trying to focus on here is taking a step back and getting a sense for what the overall goal is of the integrated campaign. Once that's set, I think it makes sense to really focus in on each channel's goals and define what those metrics should be. To give you an idea, we see customers frequently aligning direct marketing and email for integrated campaigns. We actually have a few products really designed for this. In these cases, customers are typically designing each direct mail piece, each email message to play a very specific role in the overall integrated campaign. One piece is usually the lead, and the other is usually in more of a support role. And the timing of delivery is planned very carefully. Some examples I can think of include catalogers, and as well as subscription products. So in some of these examples, we'll see our customer design an email to go out to really kind of pre-announce and warm up the catalog mailing. And it may have links to a digital version of the catalog. In some of the kind of scenarios I can think of, the catalog is then timed to drop and arrive in the mailbox within a few days. And then in many cases, a follow-up email may go out, mixed in with some social marketing, display banner ads are all natural extensions and used frequently in the integrated campaigns that we help our customers with. 2 other quick areas to really focus on that are important are measuring, being able to measure, being set up for this, as well as defining what success is upfront. So take the time to do these things before the campaign is launched. So with that as a backdrop, once your campaign is defined and your goals are understood, it's time to just take one more step back and really review the content of the email. Ensure that the relevancy and the call to action of the email aligns to all these goals that we just discussed. I'm going to shift gears a little bit and get a little more tactical as it relates to email tips. And, there are tons of areas and, discussions we could have around email design that I can talk about. They're all very important, but I'm only going to have time to talk about 3 today. But I do want to just mention that we have some great resources for you on other areas. I'm going to mention those on the next slide. So my 3 areas I'm going to just discuss are images, image suppression, and then mobile. So I see lots of excellent email campaigns come across my desk from our customers. They're doing everything right in the image department, but I also see a lot that can use help. And when looking at this all through the integrated lens, sometimes here's a few things that I notice could be improved upon. using the same imagery and creative feel throughout the campaign. There can be a disconnect if the look and feel of an email changes once you get to the landing page, or if the direct mail and email aren't on the same look and feel. By doing this, you're going to tie the campaign together, leverage all the channels involved, get the highest response rate possible. And from a more tactical standpoint, remember that using a very large image in an email should be avoided. If these images are so large that they're causing the copy to be pushed down below the fold of a preview pane, you're basically asking for reduced open rates and reduced click-through rates. Sometimes what I see in integrated campaigns is designers are actually using the same imagery, might be high-res artwork from a catalog or from something print, and literally just using that in the email as one large image. And that's going to cause a lot of red flags, cause spam filters to potentially trap that message and put it in a junk box. So while I want to stress integrated, from an image standpoint, we need to make sure that the images are really optimized, and we use text as well as images in the email content. That kind of leads into the next area, which is image suppression. In that same digital marketing trends survey, we asked teachers what email clients are using, and close to 50% are still using Outlook, which defaults to image suppression, as well as some other web-based email clients out there. So, despite these large numbers, we're still seeing many customers not necessarily following the best practices, and there's a lot, too many to really get into here, but we have the resources to help folks understand image suppression, whether it's using alt text or tables in HTML or mixing preview text in there. So we have the expertise to help with this. We can also help on the topic of designing emails for mobile devices. In the past few years, we're just all seeing an explosion in this area. And last year in Q4, mobile devices actually surpassed webmail and desktop mail in total number of opens. And that number probably won't change, at least in my opinion. So the message here, again, is really design your email messages with this in mind, test it on devices. In addition to opening emails, we're seeing a trend rise for folks clicking through and interacting on your website with these devices. So again, we have expertise and resources to help you in these areas. One other area that's important to focus on is landing pages being optimized. And as I mentioned, that's technically not part of the email, but it is important. And actually, I'm going to defer to Kim Booth, who's going to come on after me and spend some more time discussing this area. But it is a vital, portion or a vital key to success on a well-executed either email campaign, a standalone, or integrated campaign. If you think about the job of email to get a click through to the landing page needs to be designed optimally to convert to the next action. So we want to make sure that there's not a disconnect there. So a couple of resources I mentioned. We have a great digital marketing resource center on our website. There's the link underneath. And just two of the things that I have mentioned so far are the 5 best practices for prospecting email, as well as the guide to mobile email marketing. There's more content on there, and your sales rep have a lot of great information at their fingertips and can consult with you and get us involved too. So those are some good resources to take a look for. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kim Booth.
Great, thanks, Derek. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm going to be talking about web advertising and a couple different areas of web advertising, specifically how to make your web advertising campaign just a natural extension of your overall marketing campaign, how to integrate that into your overall marketing campaign, and just some general optimization tactics when you're building your web advertising campaign, what to look at from a design perspective. As Derek mentioned before, what to look at from a landing page perspective, just some general best practices there. And overall, how integrating across multiple platforms can amplify your overall campaign reach. So let's dive right in. One thing that we've seen and one thing that we've been talking about throughout all of these slides is really how the best ROI comes from campaigns that combine new and traditional marketing tools and tactics to connect customers across a variety of platforms. So whether that's with email marketing or web advertising or social content generation and marketing, we really see an increased return on investment when we combine all of these pieces together. And adding web advertising to your overall marketing plan is only going to help increase and boost the performance of your overall campaign. And the benefits are really endless. When you're integrating web advertising, you're going to definitely see an increased reach because you're using a different platform. You're reaching that audience in a different way through your display advertising. And as a result of that, your brand and product awareness and favorability is going to go up. Your customer sees and opens an email, sees your brand. Your customer is on a social network, they see your brand, and they're online searching for something that's relevant to them, and they see your brand through a display advertising piece. So it's only going to raise that favorability. I think the key benefit of web advertising is really the in-progress campaign testing. That's the key to digital marketing, is really getting in-progress campaign testing and in-progress results. So you can really have real-time ability to review metrics, examine your creative performance. How are my banner ads working? Is my messaging working? Is my landing page doing its job? And as a result, make in-progress campaign optimization choices. Whether you want to add additional creative to your campaign, take out the banner creative that you're currently running. There's a lot of flexibility with display advertising that really helps you manage to your campaign objectives throughout the entire process. And of course, the key is the strong metrics and measurability. So in addition to understanding how your campaign ran, how many impressions were served, you can also track conversions and get into some deep metrics that help support your overall integrated campaign. And some general web advertising optimization tactics. Obviously, this is something we want to approach before we launch our campaign. And web advertising is a relatively simple and straightforward path to make sure that you're optimized out of the gate. And starting with design, we've seen better results when using animation, whether that's a flash file or an animated GIF. You're competing on a web page, so you really want to draw the attention of your customer. So you really want to try to use animation whenever possible. Make sure you're using a clear, well-written message or hook. Don't convolute the banner ad with a lot of messaging. It confuses the user. And to strengthen that as well, use a strong call to action. Let the user know what you want them to do when they're clicking on the banner ad. Are they learning more? Are they downloading a free tool? Make sure that call to action is there and it's front and center and usually encapsulated in some sort of button element. And use simple design elements across the board. If you look to the right of the page, you're going to see an example of that with clean colors, nice typography, some clear call to action messaging wrapped in a button, like I said before, and very simple messaging. The landing page is just as important, if not the most important. You're going to want to make sure that you have some design connectivity to your banner creative. So if you're using a specific font or some color base, you want to make sure that you're carrying that over to your landing page so the consumer or the user, when they click, they're not jumping onto your landing page and there's a complete disconnect. You want to make sure that your call to action is actualized. So if you're telling your consumer, get it now, they want to come to your page and see a form or understand how they're going to get whatever they're coming to your page to get. And again, just as with the banner creative, you want to make sure you're using brief, clear, and concise messaging across the board. The confirmation page is just as important. And I think the golden nuggets of web advertising are really always use a conversion tracking code whenever possible so you can stretch out your metrics even further, specifically to track post-click conversions. So a display ad that's seen and clicked, the customer visits but doesn't purchase or submit right away, that original ad click is given credit for the conversion. That's a really key fundamental metric. And I think probably the golden nugget of all nuggets is the post-view view-through conversion. So your display ad is impression, so it's seen, but it's not clicked. And then the customer goes through some other vehicle and converts. So we can track by using a conversion tag that actual conversion and link it back to the banner campaign. So really using the optimization feature and making sure you have a conversion tag and you're following these best practices is really going to help your creative succeed and your campaign succeed. And of course, The benefit of web advertising, like I said on the previous slide, is you can make these adjustments while your campaign is in progress. And I think something that kind of ties all of these slides together really is by utilizing these different platforms and utilizing these different vehicles to integrate your campaign and bring home your campaign objective through different platforms is that your campaign is really going through this marketing funnel that you see on the screen. The benefit is that consumers may not always take a linear path through the marketing funnel, but they'll always experience these stages. They'll always see your brand. They'll always become aware of your brand. They'll have brand recall. If they're clicking through, they're going to go to your page. They're going to become engaged with the content on your page, become more aware of your brand and educated on your brand. And if you have a conversion or lead gen specific campaign objective, they're going to travel right down through that bottom funnel, and they're going to convert and complete the goal. So the benefit of using all these different vehicles is you're really driving them through this funnel. And they're always going to go through at least two of these layers and really become exposed through these multiple digital touches, which is really important. And I think with that, we're going to turn back to Moira for Q&A.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you, Kim, and thanks, everybody. There was a lot of really great stuff in there. We've actually got quite a few questions already. But, one of our ideas was to see if we could get folks to share a few of their own tips of what's working, and we did get a couple. If you want to send any more in, you can just type them into that Q&A panel in the corner of your screen. But, this is a good one, Kim, following up on what you were saying is we've tested different types of banner ads and found that the best results come from using animated files. So, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but is that the experience we're having with customers in MDR?
Yeah, absolutely. We're definitely seeing better results with animated files just because of the interactivity on the page. Like I said before, you're competing basically on a web page. You have a limited amount of time to impress your customers. So having some sort of animation on the page is going to capture their attention, and having that animation follow the best practices, have a clear communication, have a clear call to action is only going to amplify them to engage them enough to click on that banner creative. The benefit too, if you're using animated banner creative, if you're utilizing an animated GIF or a flash ad, is that you will also provide a backup static GIF. So if the browser doesn't support Flash, for example, you will have that default static so they will not miss your messaging. And also one other key feature that wasn't in the slides, just as equally important, is always to use alt text. Should the browser not be able to generate any image, always have some short description of what your banner creative is so the consumer can see that text and click through.
All right, good. Here's another one, and maybe, Linda, you might want to add something to it. A smart strategy is using online catalogs in addition to print catalogs, and also sending mini catalogs with links quite prominent to online versions. Have you been doing that with any of your customers and getting any results?
Thanks, Moira. Excuse me. We have, and particularly for folks who are really beginning to look at widening the prospecting net, so that the tactic here is to do a mini catalog with products and services really selected for that particular prospecting subset, but then driving them to the online catalog so they see the full catalog. And interestingly, also offering them the option to request a catalog or a set of catalogs in the mail. Similarly, we have some clients, for whom if it's a better prospect, we're sending the full catalog, but we're giving them special offer or special offer code for the online catalog, but we're also including other kinds of value-add pieces like a white paper or a sample lesson plan or a list of resources. I think between your junk file on your email and this notion of junk mail, we're trying to make both email and direct mail important mail. And one of the ways that we're doing this is by really varying and enhancing content that goes out, but still within a sales context. I think, as we heard from, from Kim and from Aaron, we want to be conversational in our social and digital media, and we want to be attention-grabbing and social in our direct mail and email. We have the chance to sell. So those are some of the techniques we're looking at.
Good. You know what? I think we've got enough questions coming in that I may just switch over to questions. But if anyone else wants to share some more tips, please feel free to forward them along. Ryan, I have a question here. It's related to database marketing and marketing automation. Can you give us an example of how you might help a client who's trying to build a nurturing strategy get started, and taking advantage of marketing automation, some of the channels we talked about today?
Absolutely. There's a couple of schools of thought. There's one where we actually engage with the clients and help them identify the right tools, kind of streamline the process for them to bring in-house. The other is we actually can put them on our instances, whether it is a tier one email service provider, and provide the actual program and set up for them. So once we identify the right target and segments, we actually put them into a drip nurture campaign over a period, probably the course of a year. Again, kind of going back to identifying the right persona of what are the actions when somebody either clicks on a banner ad and fills out a form or comes to PPC. So you'd really want to discuss what channel they're coming inbound from, and from there, design what does that engagement look like for a time period or duration, whether that's a 6-month engagement, a year-long slow drip nurture campaign, or kind of an accelerated campaign where you hit them with 3 or 4 real quick, impactful bits of information and follow that up. So we, like I said, we work with clients on both forms, either just really with a strategy and helping them outline that, or with the heavy lifting as well, where we construct it in-house and create their own instance under our umbrella.
Great. Well, thanks for that, Ryan. We heard a little bit about direct mail and email and trade shows, and I'm interested to hear how Linda, you or Jim might suggest that you try to link your direct mail strategy to your trade show strategy. I mean, those are two vehicles that have been around for a long time, and how is that changing in a digital world? What are you adding to that mix to get people to show up at your booth?
Jim, you want to go first, and then I'll add in?
Well, yeah. One dynamic that's happening among trade shows is the associations that sponsor them are getting much more reluctant to give out contact information. So this is actually a natural point at which you can integrate your tactics, and the implications are many, but here's a few. One is you have to do a good job capturing names, and then rely on MDR, on your CRM, on Flywheel to start matching so you can append data. If you want to conduct an email campaign in advance or as follow-up, again, because unless you're spending significant money as a sponsor, and even then, you're probably not getting the full suite of contact data for the attendees. The second then implication from that is direct mail is a natural. You are getting name, title, and district, so you should rely on the strategies that in order to drive traffic to your booth and generate excitement in advance. So those are two ideas that come to mind.
I would just like to kind of widen the net here, Jim, and jump in. But typically there's a lot more folks who want to go to those conferences and cannot go. So a couple things. I mean, when you know your show schedule in advance, I would put it in catalogs. I would put it in emails to say, going to ASCD, going to IRA, see us there. And then you can also use in your broader emails and broader direct mail, and even in your social marketing, missed ASCD, here's what we talked about. Here's the white paper. Here are some of the interesting things we heard and we saw. You didn't get to go to XYZ conference. Here's the special promotion we offered conference attendees. So I think there's a lot of ways to widen the net. I still see a lot of folks at conferences, and Jim, you probably do too, who walk in with the postcard and say, I got this postcard, I know this entitles me to X. And I still think strategies like that are great. I think a lot of the shows are doing booth walks and exhibit hall quests. They're giving folks the opportunity to do lots of off-the-show floor marketing-connected activities, and all of those begin to help integrate the message. So I think those are some ways to integrate. I think if you're planning a major product launch at a conference, you certainly want to keep the momentum there. But as soon as that's over, then you can really leverage that throughout other channels. So I think those are some ways to think about integrating for sure.
Yeah, let me just add one more comment, which is Linda's absolutely right. You can use the strategies she just laid out to get people going right to your booth. I think the one thing you want to avoid is a program that creates a mad dash. You see it all the time where as soon as the doors open, everyone runs to that booth for their chance to win an iPad. And they have a very full booth, but if there's only one or two winners, then you may have 100 or 200 people disappointed. So you have to balance between getting that foot traffic and then getting the right kind of foot traffic. And I think some of the strategies laid out across all the presenters today will help you get there.
Jim, I would also say that we really counsel clients, if they're going to do 2 iPads, then do 20 lesson plan books or smaller things.
Right.
So more people have more of a chance to win, and it only happens if you sit for a demo or some other things. So the sales piece of that is really the sales piece, or lead gen is really the priority.
Yep.
So and there's lots of ways to go about that. So.
Okay, good. Aaron, I don't know if you want to chime in just a couple of points on what you did at TCEA, because I think it really did kind of integrate a number of channels on the We Are Teachers presence there.
Yes, we last weekend at TCEA, we created some shirts that said "Teachers Rock Because," and we had a list of 5 reasons that teachers rock. that tech teachers rock. And on the shirts, we had a link to a website where people could go to submit their own reason why tech teachers rock, as well as to enter to win a prize like iPads. And what we did is we found recruited ambassadors to wear the shirts around the conference and to tell people about the contest that they could go to the link. And so when someone walked up to someone and said, "Where'd you get that really cool shirt?" they were able to say, "Oh, I got it from We Are Teachers. If you go to this link, you can tell us why tech teachers rock, and you could win an iPad or a different tech prize." So it was a good way for us to build branding, and we got teachers really excited. Everyone was really excited to wear the shirts around the conference. And we built interaction among these teachers because if we saw them wearing a shirt at a certain time, we gave them a gift card.
Great. So you took advantage of a number of different ways to get that message across. So that's good. We have time for one more question, and I'm going to open it up to the whole panel. I think maybe I'll start with the team here in the room, but it's kind of the big question is, what is the biggest mistake, or what do you see being done wrong the most within digital marketing?
I'll start. This is Derek. There's quite a few things, and a lot I think are really easy to start implementing. From an email standpoint, there's so many metrics behind getting the feedback, similar to banners, and how immediate you can learn things. And so, testing is definitely one. It's so easy to understand ways to improve your email open rate, what's working, by simply doing very simple testing. We have tools to get more sophisticated. I won't really go into the product spiel, but it's very easy to understand, offers, creative, subject lines. These are all ways to kind of widen the funnel, increase response, and there's really no reason people shouldn't be doing it. I've seen some customers who are very sophisticated in the content, in other areas that simply don't think they have the bandwidth or time, and it's really not true. So that's one, and then one other, and then I'll pass it on, is I know from an email standpoint, a lot of people try to do too much in an email. Back to that kind of catalog question, I've seen folks who literally try to put a whole catalog in an email, in short and sweet, punchy, and trying to get folks from an email perspective just to understand and get through to the call to action and click through. Those are a couple of examples.
Right. Absolutely. And I think to chime in from a display advertising and just overall perspective, really making sure that you have a campaign strategy. And if you're integrating display advertising or some channel into your overall marketing plan, make sure there's connectivity and all of the pieces map to your end goal. Oftentimes, we'll bump into banner campaigns that have a particular message on the banner, and then they link through to a landing page that doesn't support that banner messaging, which really kind of just drops off from a click-through rate perspective. So it's really important before launching your display advertising campaign to step back, look at your overall integrated marketing plan, and see how it's going to support the end campaign objective or goal. And I think from just a tactical perspective, to kind of echo what Derek said, is also test your banner creatives. There are simple tactics that you can take, like building your file size to the lowest common denominator to make sure that your banner ad could be served on a variety of browsers. So it's really important to look at the functional specs, make sure that you're mapping to that, testing your creative, and moving forward from there, as well as obviously really looking at the big picture of the overall campaign strategy.
Great. Good. Anybody else want to chime in?
I would chime in, and I would say that each channel in an integrated marketing mix has strengths. Display advertising, if you think of outdoor advertising, you don't put a long text message on a billboard, and I look at display advertising that way. Similarly, an email to me is like an invitation or a thank you note. And so if you look at the strengths of each channel, it really informs, I think, how you message and how you integrate that campaign. So I thought that was a great answer, Erin.
And I wanted to add that I really think that on these integrated marketing campaigns, this is Erin, by the way, I think being creative and thinking creatively with your team is a way. The more creative you can get, the more interaction you're going to build. And so we always just on our team, we get together and we brainstorm the wildest, most creative ideas, but oftentimes those are the ideas that end up working.
Okay, good. Well, thanks, everybody. This was a great session. Thank you so much, Linda, Ryan, Jim, Erin, Derek, Kim. I think this is our biggest panel ever, but you all gave us a lot of great stuff. And thanks especially to everyone on the phone who joined us today. Please pay attention to your email. We'll be sending you more. We're going to be doing an update on federal, state, and local funding in March. I know everyone really loves those updates with Ann Rujic. And so watch your mail and look at schooldata.com. We will have a feedback survey right after this session, so please hang on for just a second. Give us a little feedback. We'd love to hear what worked, what didn't, and how we can do better next time. Thanks very much, and have a great day.